Hello, everyone. Ron here from L.T.L Tutoring Central. And today I'm discussing reading tips for success at school. Reading is such an important activity. We still extract most of our information probably from reading. Well, I guess we listen to a lot of information as well. And I have done videos about listening, and I will likely do more videos about listening in the future. But at the moment, I'm talking about reading tips that can really help you succeed. The first thing is, what is your motive? Why are you reading what you're reading? And try to go beyond because my teacher told me to. you want to you want to go past that. You want to start uh, letting yourself be the center of your education. Remember, it's for you. I should be doing this. It's going in here. So try to find a connection, a personal connection to the reading that will make sense to you. And that will be your motive. Of course, maybe your teacher said you had to read that chapter or that book or whatever. But there's something beyond that for you. Think of something for yourself. Get a motive for you. You want to do better at school. You want to get a better grade. You want to learn this material. That's probably the best motive. If you can get interested in the material, I really want to know this science, or I really want to know this history, or whatever it is. That's the best motivation for yourself. And now that you're motivated, you want to read actively. In other words, you want to be engaged with the material, not just reading sort of blankly. You're reading the words and the sentences, but nothing's really getting into your mind or into your memory or into your comprehension or retention because you're just reading. Sometimes we do that when we're watching a movie or television show or something at the end of the day, and it's just kind of going past you. And that's fine if you're just sort of zoning out and relaxing, or maybe you're playing a video game, but you're not really paying a lot of attention to it. But when you want to learn, of course, you need to be more engaged. And I think even for pleasure, we get a lot more out of it if we're engaged in what we're doing. So read for meaning, looking for meaning in the text, trying to make connections. You can make connections to your own personal life or your own experiences, but you can also make connections. I talk a lot about networking or webs of knowledge that we build, looking at other people or stories you've heard. You can think about other uh, texts that you've read, but also movies and podcasts and blogs and things that people have told you or interesting people you've met. However, it connects or weaves into this new web of knowledge that you're building. So that's reading for meaning. Also use prediction. Try to think what comes next. If you're reading a fiction story or novel, obviously that's something that we can do all the time, is think what is this character going to do next. But you can also think of it in academic texts as well. uh, if this is how the cell works, what comes after that, or how does it work in this situation, for example. So you can use a little bit of prediction in almost any kind of reading. And again, that's just one more way of engaging yourself, making sure that you are involved in the learning process. And that's so important, because otherwise you're just doing it mechanically. And sure, you'll remember a little bit of it. It's kind of learning by rote, but not really, because by rote you're doing it over and over and over. And you may only read this text once. You shouldn't. You should be reading it at least 3 times probably. But I know that a lot of students will read it once. So if you're only reading it once, definitely try to read it at least twice or 3 times, but you do definitely need to be engaged. Use a reading method. I've talked before about the SQ3R method. This is sort of a modified version of that method, and people can, once you've tried a method like the SQ3R, you can sort of adjust it to match what your own style is. If I could get my words out, that'd be great. But here's one preview. It's kind of like the survey of SQ3R. So in this case, though, you read the first and last paragraph. You don't skim over it, you actually read it. And then you read the first sentence of the remaining paragraphs. Now, this is, maybe something, it has to be of a reasonable length in order to do this. You don't want to do this for something that's huge. Um, Then you read the text from the start to the finish. So you will reread the first paragraph again and read all the paragraphs and reread the last paragraph again. Never be afraid to reread. That's a good idea. I just mentioned before, at least two or three times. Then you would review by skimming over the passage. So you've read through it carefully after you did your preview. Now you just skim over it a little bit and remind yourself of all the main ideas. You can write a summary, and that's a great practice to get into, is writing a summary, because now you're using your own words and you're seeing how much of it did you retain, how much of it did you comprehend. You can still look at the text, of course, but as you're writing, you'll be aware of how much of it you already remember, and you only need to look up certain bits and pieces, and then you can review that. And you're writing it in your own words, so that when a quiz or a test comes up and you have questions where you have to write the answer in your own words, and you may not even have access to the text at that point, you've already done it. You've already practiced doing that in your summary. So that will make it a lot easier for you. Speak about what you're reading, or what you have read. You can talk to other people, anybody who's interested. Probably shouldn't talk to someone who isn't interested because they're not going to want to listen. But you can also talk to yourself, or you can make a recording, just as I am right now. You could do an audio recording or a video recording of yourself talking about the material. Often I go for a walk when I'm trying to remember something that I've just read, or well, anything really, and it's just going through my mind. You don't literally have to talk out loud, although sometimes I do. Um, you don't even look crazy anymore because everyone's talking on they got the earbuds and the phones and things. So you can't tell whether someone's talking to themselves or talking to someone else now. So don't worry about that. But you can do that to, again, engage yourself with the material, get yourself into the material more personally, and that will help you to remember it. And again, you're reviewing it again. So now you've reviewed it several times. If you've read it two or three times and you've written a summary, and now you're kind of speaking about it to yourself, either literally or at least in your head, you're running over the material again and making all those connections and engagements that we talked about previously. Uh, it's a whole other review in a different way, and that's great too. Using different modalities and practicing it in different ways will just make that network of knowledge even stronger in your brain. You'll have more synaptic responses. And read often. The more you read, the easier it becomes, and the more you can read, because you'll be reading more quickly without losing comprehension, because your skill levels keep rising the more you do it. Even if you haven't been doing a lot of reading for a while, a few months or something, or forbid more than that, but it's hard for me to believe people don't read. But when you get back, maybe you were reading really well, and then when you come back to it, you're a bit rusty. You're going to notice. It's just like any other sport that you do or game that you play. If you haven't done it for a while, you come back to it, you're a little bit sluggish, you're a little bit rusty. But as you keep practicing, that will come back, and it will come back much quicker if you already had the skill. So you want to read as often as you can. There's lots of material to read beyond what you must read, and you should do that anyways, to read for pleasure. I should have put that on my list as well, but there you go, read for pleasure, because that will help keep your skills up to speed, and you're not just reading things that you have to read. But remember, we're going to try to motivate ourselves beyond that anyway. That was my one of my very first points here. So know your motive, read actively, read for meaning, use prediction, use some form of reading method so that you're doing it with different modalities, and read often. Those are the main tips that I'm mentioning here. They're in the blog as well. You can have a look there. Sometimes there's a difference between the video and the blog, and some people like to hear and some people like to see, and some like to do both. So there'll be a link for that below. I think that's all for now. I want you to read. I want you to enjoy reading. And sometimes there is a little bit of work to it. Not all academic reading is fun, fun, fun. I get it. But there are ways that you can enter into it so that it actually benefits you. And once you feel that you're gaining a benefit, it makes it a lot easier. And And that just means you learn even more, because the easier it is, the more relaxed you are. That's going to help you too. All right, I'm going to stop talking before I get into babbling along forever. It's Ron from L.T.L Tutoring Central. Keep learning, keep having fun. Until next time, bye bye for now.